Hi there, this is Eshu. I'm the abbot here at Zenwest Buddhist Society. This Living Zen-podcast is just one of the many resources we've created at Zenwest to make Zen practice and training more available and accessible to people all over the world. Instructional videos, printable resources, and much, much more are also available on our website at www.zenwest.ca. If you're a regular listener, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop me an email at office@zenwest.ca and let me know who you are, how you got started, and what brought you to Zen. Everything we make available in person and online at Zenwest is only possible because of the support of our members and associates, people like you. If the efforts of our community are making a difference in your life, I'd like to invite you to show your support and take part in making it happen by becoming an associate or member of the Zenwest Sangha. You can do this by clicking the Join Us tab on our website at www.zenwest.ca. Thank you for your support, and thanks for listening. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's Sangha Sunday. And Sangha has been something I've been thinking about a great deal lately. Sangha. We all practice in the context of a Sangha. I used to give a lot of talks about what Sangha was. I realized recently I haven't really spoken about it much. And what I realize is that sometimes I assume that people understand community. I assume that people are familiar with what it's like to be in community. And more, I'm realizing that when I make assumptions about what people understand, the old line about what assumptions do holds absolutely true. I've seen it in cases where I've assumed that a 35 or 40-year-old person knows how to clean a bathroom or mop a floor or do dishes, cook a basic meal. It's not always the case. In our modern and affluent society, it's entirely possible to come up to middle or even elder age and not be familiar with something that somebody else considers a totally essential and basic life function. Community is, to me, it's a basic human need, and it is one of the most basic human structures. It's one of the oldest human structures. Human beings come together in communities. But more and more what I'm seeing is that human beings are losing that resource, that capacity, that understanding of what it means. In the context of Buddhism, we talk about three treasures: Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Buddha and Dharma get a lot of airplay in Zen centers and in Buddhist centers. Sangha, not so much. And I think part of the reason is that a lot of people assume that as human beings, the importance, the value of community is understood. But from what I've seen in many Zen communities, it's not really the case. I think we understand that we're part of something. I think we enjoy the benefits of a collective endeavor. But I don't think a lot of the time we're really aware of everything that's entailed. And in Buddhism, this pointer that says, there are three treasures: Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. This is chanted all the time. It's placed in a very prominent position in the whole structure of Buddhism. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about it. In the traditional Buddhist Sangha. The word Sangha was very specific. And another term that was used interchangeably with the Sangha was the four groups. And the four groups were bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasaka, and upasika. Bhikkhu is a monk. Bhikkhu is a male monk, male ordained. And bhikkhuni is a female ordained. And upasaka is a male lay person, and an upasika is a female lay person. Those were the four groups. That was the Sangha. If I was talking about the Sangha, I was talking about these four groups and nothing else. People who come to hear the Buddha teach but have not taken refuge, who have not received the Sila, are not Sangha in this traditional definition. They are as these really kind of, in translation, kind of awkward terms. There were unlearned outsiders, and there were learned outsiders. And a learned outsiders was somebody who had come and heard the teaching and was doing the practice of the Buddhist community, but hadn't received the Sila or hadn't taken refuge. Refuge in the three treasures. This was the earliest form of becoming Buddhist, was to take refuge in the three treasures: Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Our definition of Sangha is much broader. And even when I look around this room, even when I look and say, okay, so even according to this traditional model, there's really only 4 people in this group of, 13 of us, who don't actually fit into the Sangha traditional definition. But don't worry, I still consider you all Sangha. I also want to really, I have this feeling that this talk's going to get kind of heavy. So I don't want everyone in this room to feel like I'm pointing a finger directly at them. I'm wearing a microphone, and this talk will go online. And I want everyone here and everyone who's listening online to understand that the community of Zenwest is very large. 1 million podcast downloads was passed several months ago now. Just last week, we confirmed an application for a distance member from Mauritius. I don't even know where that is. I had to look it up on Google. And if you don't know where it is, it's this tiny island off the coast of Madagascar. That person found, her name is Grace. That person found podcasts and videos of material that we put online, started to sit and wanted to connect and get some instruction from an experienced teacher who's rooted in a community. Because, you'd never guess this, on Mauritius, there aren't any Zen centers. When I was Googling it, I found that it's an island that the variance in temperature between summer and winter is like 4.8 degrees. And it's surrounded by white sand beaches. So if there's ever a need for a Zen center in Mauritius, well, I'd be happy to visit. Anyways, we have members all over the place. We've got members in Germany, we've got members in the United States, we've got members in Amsterdam, Eastern Canada. We've had members all over the world. Our community is big. And there are many people who listen who I've seen post and refer to me like they view me as a teacher, and they view our community through listening to us as their community. So I'm talking to everybody when I'm talking about Sangha, this treasure. What's it all about? Well, The first of our 4 vows in Japanese, Shujo Muhen Seigan Do. We translate it is all beings without number I vow to liberate. And universally and always, I and many other people, this is an old translation into English of the 4 vows, and most people who read it, who have experience and practice, view that translation as really bad. Genjo's translation that they use when they recite it in English goes something to the effect of all beings, however innumerable, I vow to care for them all. I think that comes closer to the point. Our practice, the first of the 4 vows and this treasure of Sangha, comes down to relationship, making harmonious, caring relationship. Lately, over the past maybe year and a half, 2 years, our community, this organization, Zenwest Buddhist Society, has struggled. One of the big places that it's struggled is in the financial area. Recently, during a board meeting as the abbot, I was asked to really look at I actually brought up looking at different models for our community to go forward in a way that was really possible, because it's gotten to the point in our community where I have to keep cutting things out of the programming. I have to keep cutting activities, and I have to keep cutting resources. And it's gotten to the point where really the only thing left to cut is salary. And that's a big change for our community. So how do we go forward? So over the past couple of weeks, I've really been investigating how that's possible. And honestly, I've been investigating how it's come about. And a big part of it in my heart, and what I've come to, is that a big part of it is that I have really let go or dropped the ball on really teaching Sangha. When we first, the members and board and myself, first took up the endeavor of running this vision of Zen West as a community that supports both a robust urban lay-focused practice as well as a robust rural residential sort of intensive focused practice, we realized that there was going to be cost to that. We realized that it would be impossible for anybody to do that on a volunteer basis. It would be impossible for anybody to do that on a part-time, volunteer, not fully engaged way. So we realized that there'd be an expense. So when we took up different models of how to pay for that expense, we said, well, we could run it like a business. We can say, this is how much the budget's going to be to cost. This is how many members we're gonna be able to have. So if we just add up the totals, we can say membership is whatever we came up with, $250 a month. That'd cover it. There wouldn't be so many students, but the finances would be covered, and not so many students might be good for Eshu. He wouldn't have too much work to do or too many people to worry about, and he could be sure that people who only really wanted to be there could be there. And generally everyone around the room said, no, that's ridiculous. That's really elitist. That makes it only possible for people who have a lot of money to participate. And that's not what our practice is about. That's not what our vision was about in making this accessible. So what we came to was this model, and we've got a couple of different levels of membership. But we have a hardship policy, and we have associateship. because we wanted to really make it accessible to people. And when we were doing that, we really recognized that it's not going to pay for it. That's not going to make it. But we also recognize that we are a non-profit society and we're a federally registered charity. We're able to accept donations. We accepted that we would need to ask for donations, and realistically, due to limitations placed on religious organizations and such, the main people we're going to be able to ask for donations from are our members who are already paying us membership dues. At the time, the people who were standing around the table understood that and recognized that it's not a business, it's not a gym membership. Membership dues, just because those are the membership dues, do not necessarily add up to the operational budget. And when the fundraising drives go out, we have to answer. And some of us, we don't have anything to answer with. We don't have any more money to offer. And some of us do. And it's been the case for many years that the people who were engaged with this community, who understood and accepted that social contract and that model, really stepped up to the plate. It's always been just, in a community of 80 people, members and associates, it's always been 10 people who cover the lion's share financially. The number of people, individuals contributing, even $5 or $10 has gone up, but still well over half, when the call goes out, do not respond. And it's easy when I'm asking over and over again to sort of say, why? Why not? Why don't you understand that we need your help? But in this 2-week period, I've really realized that there's been a huge transition in our membership over the past 5 or 6 years. A lot of the people who were standing around that table and who agreed and understood that social contract have come and gone. New people have come in, and I've done a really piss-poor job of explaining how our organization and how our community is supported and runs. So people come in and they say, membership dues, and here's my payment. And because we don't have that kind of community model anymore, we think it's just like my gym membership, it's just like my library membership, it's just like my this membership or my that membership. It's a business. And what I'm being asked to pay is a membership. I'm certainly not being asked to support other people. I'm certainly not asked to subsidize other people. But yeah, actually, in this community, when we pay for our membership, what we're doing is accepting our responsibility and our place in a practice community, in a Sangha. When we pay for our membership, we're paying for things like making our practice, this practice, available to people all over the world, in places far-flung in the middle of the ocean that don't have Zen centers or access to teachers. We're making it possible to have a place where we can go in the city to do practice every week. A place in the country out here in Suk where somebody, even yourself, who just today, next week, wants to take a week off to disconnect and connect with the environment that they're in and do a week of practice. We pay our membership, and that supports having a teacher that's available all the time to do that kind of training with you, to meet with you, to speak with you. It's a treasure. And look around. Go visit some other centers and go explore the Buddhist communities around you and what's available, because it's easy to sort of lose sight of the treasure that you have. relationship. Again, Sangha is about relationship. How many people in this room, you don't need to answer, have lost their shit in a zendo on the cushion? I'm talking snot dripping into your hands as you sit, as all of the garbage from your childhood and last week at work just vomit up into the current experience. And how many people have had people sitting beside them strongly, supporting them? You can feel their support. You know that they're there. They don't need to be in your face. They're not trying to tell you to cheer up or be happy or, tuck it away or don't think about that. They're just there sitting with you through your shit. A lot of you. I have. Me! What's the value of that? In your life outside of this community, in all of your friends and even your partners, that simple thing is almost impossible to find elsewhere. But you can turn up as a relative newcomer here, and there it is, provided in abundance. That's a treasure. So the question is, how do we maintain relationship? And this goes, I think, in community like this, but as well as in relationships with other individual human beings. Sangha is something that takes a lot of work. It doesn't happen. I've been practicing with this community for 20 years. That scares the shit out of me, actually. 20 years. I'm not that old. But it's true. And I've seen periods where there has been no sense of community whatsoever. Where I talked and did all these things and activities, and God, we've got to have this community. It's one of the treasures, and it never worked. The year we moved out here, and when was it? 2005, was gas prices went up. And people coming out here said, well, let's carpool instead of wasting all this gas. Everyone driving out 10 people, 10 cars. So we had this thing where, we'd have a carload of people come out for 45 minutes and listen to me blather for an hour, and then they would drive back for 45 minutes. And all of a sudden, this sense of community started to arise. People started to know one another. Many Zen centers, the situation is people show up right before the sit. You look at the floor for an hour and a half, and then you leave. You can go to a Zen center for 20 years and have no idea who that person is. But that started to develop. Once people started to know one another, know where each other were coming from, know how practice was impacting each other, we started to care about one another. And all kinds of things started to happen. My focus at that time was entirely rooted in practice, a monastic practice. Started to have conversations with members where I got a whole lot of pushback about the value of lay practice, the value of community, the value of socialization, the value of doing things within our community that weren't just sitting and looking at the floor. And I fought it. Zen is sitting, intensive practice, and if you don't like that, go socialize elsewhere. Bah! But as this really sort of committed group of people started pressing more and more and doing activities with one another, I remember one year my mother-in-law was here for our Sangha Sunday, which is held in the fall harvest potluck, rather. Sorry. And we had, the Oakland's community center was full of people, big tables, tablecloths, and lots of food, a ridiculously large turkey. Kyoku had music and everything like this. And my mother-in-law was sitting there, and I was, of course, grumpy because, something wasn't going right, and I was over busy, and it used to be, I'd be at one member's house cooking this 35-pound turkey, because we couldn't get the hall till 4, but it needed to be cooked hours before. And then I'd drive over in this car with this 400-degree turkey to finish it off at the Oaklands Community Center. And my mother-in-law turned to me and said, like, do you see this? Like, do you see what's going on in this room? And does it make you proud and happy? And I never really thought about it. And I kind of looked up and saw it kind of for the first time and kind of choked and went like, I didn't do this. These people that kind of fought me for community did this. These people that stepped up and committed to one another and committed to this community and honestly committed to me. I've been supported full time to do this work for 10 years now. 10 years this November. I will have been a full-time Zen priest. Maybe that doesn't sound like much to you, but I just left a community of American Zen teachers of 200, and I probably can count on one hand, how many of those people have been supported full-time by their community. So recently, I feel like I have some of the blame. My sister was ill and died, and I was away a long time, and I was emotionally just whacked right out and exhausted. The community has changed, and I have done a poor job of communicating that model. And so the result has been that I think that spirit has taken a hit. And it starts when we stop feeling that relationship with our co-practitioners and with our community, when we lose sight of the treasure that we have in our hands. And right now I'm worried. I'm worried because if you lose sight, if you forget about the treasure that you have in your hand, it's very easy to lose it. It's very easy to drop it. And I feel like over the past couple of years, I've been kind of watching it slip away. What do I mean? Well, today is Sangha Sunday. We've been having these Sangha Sundays for a couple of years now. And the premise of them is that, or the idea behind them was that, it was really an opportunity to have a shorter practice session to welcome associates so that we can have a bigger community sit, to allow some time for socialization afterwards. My idea was that the Zen Center can put on the beverages, the coffee and the tea and the cream and all that kind of stuff. The Zen Center prepares the space and facilitates the space. And our members and associates chip in by bringing snacks and things to share with their fellow practitioners, community members, and Sanghans. Me in my head, I have this vision of like church communities and people baking cinnamon buns early in the morning beforehand, and sharing recipes and talking about what was going on. But when it comes to pass, often what I see is Doshu and Soshin bring some nuts. I think just they feel bad because Eshu's going to cry if nobody brings anything at all. But that's kind of where it's diminished to, or pick up a bag of crisps or something like that. I love chips. I love nuts. But if we look at the relationship that we have with each other and with our community like a relationship, it's like if for a year and a half, every weekend or once, it's only once a month, I can't even say it's every weekend, once a month, your partner said to you, let's have a picnic together. And every once a month on picnic day, your partner showed up empty-handed, and you'd prepared beverages and cleaned the place and set everything up, and they kind of just turned up and go, "Yo, hey, how's it going?" Is that a relationship? Is that how we maintain and uphold a relationship? And I'm not saying that everybody should be baking cinnamon buns every week or anything like that. We each have to bring what we have. Maybe you're so busy that it's just impossible. Maybe cash is so strapped that you don't have the things to put together to bring something. That's okay. That's how I live. I know. But understand that if what we're trying to do is build relationship together and with this community to make this treasure blossom, I know you're tired. I know you're stretched. Everybody is. But if we forget about this treasure that we have, we'll lose it. Zen practice, one of the big traditions, we practice in the Takuju Hakuin Rinzai line. And I've talked lots of times about Rinzai and his teacher Obaku and his teacher Baizhang. The second case of the Mumonkan is Baizhang's fox. Baizhang was also famous for developing the first Zen code, monastic code, separate from just a sort of Vinaya Buddhist code. He was also famous for the principle of samu, work. The word samu means all together. And it encompasses the spirit that we're all together. Pratitya samutpada, we're all arising together, we're all acting together. He's famous because he every day he would go out with everybody else in the community and work all together. And then as he got older, he started, probably falling and hurting himself in work practice and stuff like this. But he always would creep out there, even if it was like an hour and a half of work, make a shovel into the wheelbarrow. And the students, in their compassion and care for him, hid his tool so he couldn't work. And so he stopped eating. And so when the monk said, hey, you're getting sick, you need to eat, he said, a day without work is a day without eating. And this is a spirit that penetrates Zen practice. And so when I go and train in places, whether it was in North Carolina or in Seattle, or even here when we do intensive practice, that communal spirit that comes from work, silent, sort of like focused work that's just giving back and developing the practice environment which benefits us all, I find it so inspiring, so rewarding. When I have a residential student and I can watch the transformation of the grounds that's connected with even an individual student's hands and heart and mind. When I see that practice being put into work for the benefit of the whole community, I feel so warm. And I think, that's the essence of community. We build this together. We've done it in the past. We come together beautifully. We actually have a physical monument to our capacity to come together beautifully in resources and work, just sitting out in that clearing. It's a small one, but it's beautiful. So at some point, maybe 2 years ago or something like this, I came back with this big idea and said, that practice is so beautiful. And I know it's hard. I know that there's a little part of us when we come and we're doing a retreat and maybe we get assigned mopping floors or cleaning a bathroom, that there's a little part of us that goes, Eshu's got me fucking cleaning the bathroom. His bathroom. Even though we've peed in the bathroom many times, even though we've Maybe if we're a guy, we've missed the toilet or something like that many times. There's a little part of us that has that resentment. But I think if we step back, it's actually pretty easy to go like, when I come here, I benefit from the environment. I benefit from having this place. I benefit when there's a new path built and when there's a hermitage built. Even if I don't use it, to know that I could, I benefit. So 2 years ago or so, I started these monthly, once a month, Zenwest work days with the idea that our community would recognize this, the Sangha would recognize the value of this. And again, I can count the number of times that people have actually shown up and the event hasn't been canceled. Even today, Janine, who's our volunteer coordinator and has seen me near tears about this before, said, well, maybe if we stick it on the end of the Sangha Sunday, we can sort of, shove some of that community energy that's generated through drinking coffee together and have a few people stay for a couple of hours. So at first I thought, oh, God, really? And then I thought, yeah, okay, let's try it. So she did. And we had our oldest member, who's had many heart problems, and in the rain, willing to come and wheelbarrow. And Janine, who's got an injured foot and is our volunteer coordinator, and I think feels obliged to sort of carry the flag for the work, she wanted to stay. And otherwise, crickets. And again, when I bring this back to relationship, if every once a month for 2 years you said to your partner, let's build something together, let's do something together. And maybe on one hand you could count the number of times that they turned up. They even turned up. We have to ask, what happens in that relationship? How is that? How are they caring for that relationship? Particularly when they're asked in a public environment, what's the value of this community? And they say, this community is transformative. This community has allowed me to really gain insight into my life. It's changed my life for the better. I think we've all had relationships like this. So what's been happening over the past year and a half is that my lack of enforcing this, or my lack of informing this, inviting people to be a part of this community, this Sangha, we've missed financial targets. And when we miss financial targets, I go to the board and they say, Eshu, you haven't got the money to run the budget that we've laid out. So you need to cut. Come back next time with what you're going to cut. So I try to make it even, and I cut over here and I cut over there, and over the past year and a half, a bunch of things have been cut, and they've raised big flags for me, because I used to get fought tooth and nail for money to do social things, to do our camping trip, to do our fall harvest potluck. And over the last year, there haven't been protests. There was no camping trip this year. I didn't hear anybody say, hey, we're not doing the camping trip. What the hell? No. Last year, I cut the fall harvest potluck from the budget. And there was a small cadre of members who said, screw that, we're taking it on. And they got together and put it on. As we came this year, I didn't even put it in the budget because we just don't have the money to run it. And it's been silent. So I just really want to invite you to reflect on the community that's here, the community that we all cherish and have, and we all benefit from. I'd like us all to reflect on the resources that we have available, physical, online, human resources. We've got 3 priests. We've got a teacher who's got time for you and space for you to practice. And that's just the top end. We have deep resources here, other human practitioners that have been practicing for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. We've seen members who have had intensive practice and really broken through, turned back into their lives and kind of disappeared from the community for a while as they transform their lives, and who come back as treasures themselves, treasures of the Sangha. You won't find this everywhere. It's a beautiful, precious jewel. But, like everything in Buddhism, it isn't permanent. Just because we have it or have had it, it doesn't mean that it stays forever. It's like a beautiful tree that offers us shade, shelter. You've got to nurture it. We have to fertilize it, we have to water it, we have to prune it. It's a lot of work. It requires a lot of resources, and financial are actually the least of them. It requires love. It requires relationship and understanding that this bodhisattva principle, all beings, no matter how innumerable, I vow to care for them all, isn't just like this lofty thing up there. It's actually, let's start with the person who's sitting beside me. Let's start with the person who's sitting across from me. Let's start with the people in my community and in my family. Not just telling them that I love them, but actually putting our heart and hands on the line to build community, to blossom community, and to create a thriving Sangha. The motto of Zen West is, we make Zen come alive. And I'd really like to invite each and every one of you, and all you people listening out there in cyberland as well, to help us make Zen come alive. This isn't just a tagline that's, on the website. This is a mantra that we have to take into our hearts and say, is what I'm doing, is how I'm engaging, whether that's with my relationship or whether that's with my community. Is this making it alive? Is this acknowledging its life, its interdependence, our mutual support? Sangha, it's a treasure. And all I ask is that you really reflect on what your life would be like without the treasure that you already have. Just take that jewel out and sit it in front of you and look at it for a little while. And maybe you haven't done that for a while. Recognize what it is that you've got. And I think that that's one of the best ways to ensure that you don't lose it, that we don't lose it. Thanks for listening to the Living Zen podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.